Okay, so hello. Welcome to Winning in the Digital Age, our second webinar for the 2020 year. And today we have 173 people registered. People are still coming in. And I would like to just give some introduction and also present what will happen today. So you know that the environment has changed dramatically. As more than one observer puts it, change itself has changed. Technologies and market in virtually every industry are now subject to frequent and unpredictable change, putting a premium on qualities like entrepreneurship, innovation, and a very rapid response. I'm the director for Renan Hui Silicon Valley Center. It's a research center with a mission to develop and offer a new management curriculum for the 21st century. We have for too long been fed with a mindset, frameworks, and tools that represent the past, capital letter, past. We want to change this because the world needs to know the true recipe for success in the digital age. As an academic and specialist on 21st century management, I feel a duty to share my knowledge with organizations that want to strive, survive, and transform before it's too late. This webinar is a teaser on a state of mind certificate course with the same title that will be offered on April 14th, 21st, and 28th. It's 4 hours each of those dates. If you want to sign up to this course and become one of the evangelists for management of the 21st century, please use the web link that I just put in the chat window. With me today, I have like-minded, passionate management gurus. And I assume that many of you share this mission and are like-minded. We have Steve Denning, the author of 7 business books on leadership, innovation, leadership storytelling, and agile management, including The Age of Agile, The Leader's Guide to Storytelling. Steve has written more than 900 articles for Forbes and more than 40 articles for the research journal Strategy and Leadership. We also have Bill Fisher, Professor Emeritus at IMD in Lausanne, and a senior lecturer at MIT, Sloan School of Management. He's also the co-founder at the IMD Sloan program on driving strategic innovation. He's the co-author of Virtuoso, how do you say that bit?
Virtuoso
Teams, the Idea Hunter, and Reinventing Giants. And then we have Antonio Boadas. He's the Chief Communication Officer and Transformation Leader at GE Appliances. And before GE Appliances, Mr. Boadas was the Director of Global Communication at Procter & Gamble for many years. And then it's me. I'm the director of the center. I spent 25 years, sort of when I was 1 year and up. So 25 years studying management innovation for the 21st century. I'm also the author of 7 management books: The Google Model, The Silicon Valley Model, Management for Entrepreneurship, and Management for the Digital Age. The roadmap ahead today will be that Stephen Denning will start presenting his view on the new reality and its effect on businesses. Then we will take part of a discussion between GE Appliances CMO Antonio Boadas and Professor Bill Fisher from IMD MIT. And then finally, we will have a panel discussion where I will integrate your questions to the panelists, followed by some closing remark from me. So let the show begin. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Annika, and thrilled to be with you here today in this exciting topic and an exciting age. And there's a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to be covering the history of the human race in 15 minutes. So please fasten your safety belts, straighten your tray tables. We are going to be in for a very rapid ride. And you look at the history of the human race in economic terms, there have been 3 great ages. First, the age of agriculture, where animal and human power were basically driving things, a bit of wind and sail, but basically things moved very, very slowly. We were stuck where we were, and it was hard to move around. In due course, we had the age of industry. We discovered steam and oil, electricity, and atoms. Stuff became more valuable than animals. Suddenly, we could start to move things around. We could start to move ourselves around. We could start to produce things in scale. And life became very, very different. There was no choice about whether we were going to do this. It simply happened. It was an economic force that uh, ensured that it happened. In the early years of the industrial age, some of the hangovers from the agriculture age were still driving things. I mean, here's an early automobile where they haven't noticed that we don't have horses driving the car anymore. And we see when an age changes, there's a lot of hangover in thinking from the earlier age. And agriculture didn't disappear. We just applied industrial methodology to it. And so it became much more efficient. And a lot of people had to move out of agriculture and find jobs in industry. And there was a characteristics way of managing in the industrial age. There were many variations, of course, and many exceptions, but by and large, organizations fell into this pattern. They had a steep hierarchy on the left-hand side. Um, the top was in charge and power trickled down. Attention was made by to the brain and even to the reptile brain. And the mindset was internal, focused on results and efficiency. And the tactics used to accomplish this were generally telling people what to do. And if they didn't obey, then coercing them to obey. That pattern of management was characteristic throughout the industrial era, and it became steadily more ingrained as the age went on. It fitted together as a system. It was coherent. It fitted the stable world in which we lived in then. It was very powerful and it had huge benefits for the human race. One example of that, I visited Microsoft in 2004, and although they were obviously a computer firm, they were being run with that kind of industrial era management, top down, a huge battleship, very hard to change direction. It ground forward, made a lot of money, but it was being run in an industrial fashion. Then we got the age of digital. We are now in the age of digital in which bytes are now more valuable than atoms. In industrial age, atoms were more valuable than bytes. That's shifted. You can argue when it shifted, but it's definitely shifted now. And we've already seen this, that in our lives have already been transformed. That's how we work, how we play, how we shop, how we learn, how we communicate, how we entertain ourselves, how we travel. Everything is different. And obviously COVID pandemic was a great accelerator in making this happen. But we are just at the start of this transition, and there's no way in which we're going back to the old ways of doing things. This whole process of invention is going to continue at a huge, huge pace. And this is not, as some people call it, the fourth industrial age. Bytes are now more valuable than atoms. This is a new age completely, the age of digital. And this way of running things in the industrial era worked very well for a time, but in this new era, it ran into some huge problems. It couldn't cope with complexity. It couldn't cope with speed. It couldn't cope with customers who are now really in charge of the marketplace. And it really wasn't able to take advantage of the fact that bytes are more valuable than atoms. And so a new pattern of management leadership emerged, really the opposite of some of those ways of running things in the industrial era. On the left-hand side, you see that the steep vertical hierarchy of authority has shifted into a horizontal network of teams that are self-organizing and that are being driven by a common goal. And now the attention is not just to the brain, but to the heart, and engaging people's minds and hearts, because you need their full capacity in order to deliver this much more challenging goal that we have. And the mission is now external. It shifts from an internal focus on efficiency to an external focus, delivering value to customers. In fact, you have a market of one. Each customer can be and needs to be treated as an individual customer. And the tactics, the way of handling these changes, these issues, it shifts from telling people what to do and coercing them what to do to inspiring them and collaborating. A very, very different pattern, almost the opposite of industrial era management. And of course, there were many hangovers of people and firms trying to run in organizations in the digital era using industrial kind of thinking. They tightened control, they reorganized, they re-engineered processes, launched sales campaign, but basically it didn't work because it wasn't appropriate to the world in which we were living, the digital age. And so hierarchies of authority had to shift to networks of teams. And again, industry didn't disappear in the age of agile, digital. Digital leadership is being applied to the industrial era as well, in the same way that industrial thinking was applied to agriculture when that became the new way. And Microsoft in 2004, industrial era management, when I visited them just over 10 years later, 2015, I didn't find a giant battleship that couldn't change direction. I came across a fleet of speedboats that were operating on a common agenda, but able to navigate and change direction very, very rapidly. Microsoft had transformed itself in this 10-year period. And I also found that the workplaces were not the dull bureaucracy that I was expecting to find. It was like visiting a nightclub. It was really a very different kind of world from what I was expecting. So how did Microsoft get from this, the battleship, to this, the fleet of speedboats? What was done to enable that to happen? Well, that's the theme of this executive training course in April. And this is an invitation to firms, most of which have already begun this journey. It aims at helping firms accelerate the journey. And the course itself is in the form of a journey of mutual learning. Some of the images you see in this presentation, in fact, come from a pilot of the course that we did 2 weeks ago. So this is being carried out in a spirit of learning together. This is not where the faculty has a set agenda and is imposing it on the group. In fact, there's a huge amount of learning among the participants. And so the course aims to create a journey of mutual learning. And the journey goes in these 3 steps. Day 1 is really learning from the stories of the participants, learning from stories of firms that have been successful, learning how Microsoft made that huge transition. The second day, a week later, leaving time to think about what they've learned there, but then deepening our understanding of how these pieces fit together. How do you diagnose what's going on? And thirdly, on the third day, applying that learning to your own firm's journey. And so we look at that in a bit more detail. On day 1, participants will start by learning from each other's story and telling their own story. They'll learn from the higher story, where they had and have a network of micro enterprises. They will then go on to learn the stories of firms with change, being led from the middle of the organization. You don't have to be a big CEO with power to hire and fire people. A lot of these changes are being carried out by people in the middle of the organization who see what needs to be done and then spark a whole change. And they will learn also, how do you craft stories so that you can inspire people to join your movement? How do you inspire anyone, whether it's a boss or a subordinate or a colleague? How do you become a leader who can inspire change? That is day 1. Day 2, deepening the understanding of the journey, understanding how the pieces of this puzzle fit together, and moving on to advanced ways of creating new businesses and platforms, diagnosing the status of a team or unit or a firm, and understanding why is it that there are setbacks and pitfalls along the way. A lot of fake change out there. So that's day 2. And then another week, come back, and we'll be coming back to the General Electric appliances story, analyzing the case of a stalled journey and giving the participants a chance. Well, what would you do if you're faced with that? And then applying all those lessons to your own firm's journey and sharing and critiquing each other's transformation journey. So it's a rapid tour. I think it's going to be fun. The pilot was a lot of fun, hugely creative, and I hope that you'll join us on that journey. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. And we are going forward with GEA's own transformation and its effect. And if you don't know about this success story yet, you have now a chance to learn. General Electric Appliances was acquired by Haier in 2016. And I must say that your journey is less than 4 years, have been extraordinary. And so I would like to leave the floor now to Antonio Boadas, that is working as a CMO and transformation leader at GEA, and then Bill Fisher, that will interview him, or you will discuss together about your transformation, which had been done in a very short time. And this, I know, is something that many of you are looking for. You know, you don't have time for 10 years to do a transformation. You need to do it in a couple of years. So this is a case which I think will be very, very interesting for you. So welcome, Antonio and Bill.
Thank
So
you,
Antonio, it's good to see you again, as always.
good to see you as well.
I think I'm taking for granted that most of the people who are on this webinar are familiar with Haier, and Haier's great claim to fame, I think, is that it's probably at the forefront of thinking about organizational and cultural change in response to digital transformation. And they come out of a non-digital native character. They are an iconic firm and forgive me if I say old economy industry, but that's the way people typically think about home appliances. What they're not as well informed about, I think, is what happens at GEA. So when we talk about Haier, we talk about micro enterprises, we talk about autonomy, we talk about value sharing. Could you just give us some insights into how GEA's transformation journey over the last 5 years, where you are today, and how it differs or agrees with what Haier is doing?
Yeah, thank you for that, Bill. And it's a wonderful opportunity to share our story, which sometimes we share with ourselves, and we're very proud of it. But we need to share what we have learned and we are doing right now. When the first time when we heard about Haier acquiring GE or GEA was a shock. We didn't know what to do with that. Then we learned about Randanhui. We didn't know how to pronounce it. We still don't know how to pronounce it. We started grabbing the key concept. But then when we understood the essence, we fell in love with it. And this is how the story started. Our current CEO went to China. He kind of discovered the nuances of this. And then we started studying and reading and listening more carefully about the essence of what we call a philosophy. It is not a recipe. And that is a fantastic, important insight. If you try to copy what Haier has done in China, you might fail if you're not in China and if you're not Haier. Because it's a philosophy that is profoundly human, and it breaks out everything that you have known before. So it is important to read, to understand it, and this is what we did. Our transformation started by learning, understanding, and then we started with some of the structural changes that are really visible, right? So the micro enterprises, the compensation systems, etc. So that's something that we can discuss later. But the deepest thing that we actually applied was working on the mindset, unleashing that human potential, reminding people that the reason why they're here is because they have a mission, and they have a mission, the personal mission with themselves, with their family. They have a passion, and we connect them to their passions. Work and passion coming one thing. Are we done? Are we ready? No. So this is part of the journey. But when we realized that the human potential was what was going to propel this transformation, everything got unleashed. So we started by defining our long-term goal, our vision, mission, our intent. We didn't have that before. We were just like making appliances and doing a good business. Right now, we are a little bit more aggressive on that. We want to be and be recognized as the best appliances company in the US. So that gives us like an additional reason to be here and to win. And that's that thirst of doing more. The second was like, yeah, we were supporting and leveraging on a single brand, which was the GE brand. All of our appliances were under one brand. That was fine. That was okay for many years, let's say for 100 years. But right now, consumers and users are looking for something more personal, more segmented, something like looks like them. So that this is when the house of brands came to fruition, and that was important one. The third one was, who is our boss? Is our boss the guy or the lady who is on the corner office and that we worship in every meeting? Actually, no. So we were like wasting energy and trying to support each other and serving internal God and godness. Actually, the only owner and the only boss is the user, is the one who is actually making the decision of taking money from their pockets and put it on the table to reward you with their trust. This is the only one that we serve. That was another important realization. When we combine these three things and the human spirit, we say like, okay, this is the avenue. And this is what has been helping us on transforming the company, supporting the business growth, the better understanding of the market. And we are much better right now. We believe that we are not only closer to achieving our goal, we're just like in a way of transforming this whole industry because of the way we're approaching people, structure, and market.
So Antonio, is it fair to say that you share the same philosophy as Haier Qingdao, but you've interpreted the Rendanhui differently to fit the North American context?
Yeah, we apply it differently, and yes, so we take this as a philosophy. We share the broad understanding of what it means, but how we execute it is slightly different. One concept that we love is zero distance, and zero distance is one of the most powerful concepts in the Rendanhui world. Just imagine what happened when the distance between your ideas, Bill, and my ideas and my executions is zero. Mm-hmm. When your desires as an owner, user, and my ability to innovate is zero. So we become one. So I will be able to serve you better because I understand you as well as you understand yourself. Getting to that space, which is like unachievable, but at least it's a direction, helps a lot to really refine and redefine the way you are structured and the way you think and the way you work. That is one of the deepest learnings that we got in the company right now. Is that dissimilar to what Haier does? No, but they might not emphasize that much on the zero distance. They might emphasize on something else. And they are more into the breaking out the company in the smallest possible pieces ever, which we call micro enterprises, but they go really deeper than that. And they are moving into a new direction, which is creating ecosystems, which is something that we haven't explored yet. We're learning about it, but we're not there yet. I think where we are right now, we're in a good place because we're learning, but at the same time, we are owning the model. So we're not copying something that we read in a book, or we need a consultant to come and check us every other month because we are like losing track. And we feel like we're sufficient right now to really understand where this is heading to. And the philosophy is reaching us to continue guiding us.
So as I understand, the micro enterprises and micro enterprises are interesting to talk about because they're tangible. You can see them and feel them. Are your micro enterprises the same size as Haier's, and do they have the same degree of autonomy? And are they all about end-to-end market activities, or are they something different?
They're pretty much autonomous. They're a little bit larger than the ones that we see in China and Qingdao. because we have like 4 very large micro enterprises, which are the what we call the core categories.
Mhm.
So it says clothes care, laundry, and the washers and dryers. We got refrigeration, we got cooking, and we got dishwashing. These are very large categories, very large spaces. In the case of Qingdao, they might have divided and split these micro enterprises into like 5 or 6 pieces each.
Right.
But we keep them together because I think there is a space for leveraging scale within those categories still in this U.S. market. But then we have smaller micro enterprises. So new ventures and new spaces in which we are operating right now. So we got air conditioning, we got small appliances, we've got water heaters. So we had some other micro enterprises that are smaller in nature, but they might grow, but they're confined into one category. The other difference between Qingdao and Haier in China and the GA in the US is that for them, the brands are micro enterprises. For us, the brands or our house of brands is a platform. And there's an important distinction here. So the micro enterprises are in the forefront, and they're the key connectors to the market, to the owners, to the consumers. They are the eyes that are in the company. So they serve them. Then the platforms, which includes the brands, they're here to serve the micro enterprises. So how do the brands serve the micro enterprises? So they got a portfolio of options to position the products in front of different audiences, different target and market targets. So that these assets are used and leveraged by the different micro enterprises. So for example, if we have in the cooking space, we have a new platform. So the micro enterprise and innovation, the micro enterprise will decide, will this fit better with a brand called Monogram, or is that a GE product, or is it so really well connected appliance, and it will work better with a brand like Profile. So these are the assets, and this is part of the discussion, and this is the healthy tension that we have right now. In the past, marketing, finance, HR, the functions were at the core of the company. They were making the calls, making the decisions. And then manufacturing, they made the products and product lines, they make the products, and then they went to market. Right now, it's quite the opposite. The micro enterprises are at the core of the company because they represent the owner, the user, and we, the platforms, are here to support them and enable them. That's a difference, a key difference between the past and also a difference between GEA and Haier.
So that's really helpful. Let me ask you one last question, and that is, clearly you've rethought how this works within the organization. You're a pretty experienced manager, very experienced manager with a wide range of organizations. Has your personal philosophy of leadership been affected by this? Have you learned things now that make you look at the general management role in a different way?
Absolutely. I feel I'm a different person now. I realized that when you are driving change, probably the most visible thing that you tend to do is changing the org chart and making changes in the structure. If you don't change people and if you don't change the mindset, your transformation might fail. The second one is you need to give up power. And that's the beauty of Handan Huya. And that's probably one of the challenges we have is that, yeah, your corner office is not only valid, you might stay in the corner, but it will not represent what the corner used to represent because you're no longer in charge. You are giving away all the power you thought you had, and you went from a dictator to a facilitator. And that is the new role of the CEO and any leader in any company that follows this philosophy. It is about letting people be themselves, letting them lead, make them accountable, and support them, enable them. That is a new role. And I think this is the beauty of this transformation, which is totally digital. It is totally open. It is based on networks. It is based on ecosystem.
So thank you so much, Antonio. Every time I speak to you, I learn something. Today was no exception. It's good working with you. Thank you.
It is great to be here as well.
Annika, I'm going to turn this back over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. And we got some great questions already because now we start the panel discussion where I will engage all of you. And so the first question is to Antonio. We got a question here from Tim Shea that say, when did it really click for you? When did you fall in love with this new philosophy? What was it that made you click?
Thank you, Kim, for the question. It made me click when I realized that this was probably the most human business philosophy, because when I realized that it was about people and not about system and processes, I felt like, wow, this is not only business transformation, this is human transformation. Unleashing the human potential is something that I always dream on. And what I have experienced with this philosophy is that it does it. And it has done it with me as well, because I felt unleashed right now. I felt like I can achieve my personal goals and at the same time support the business and the company by connecting my passions with the work. And I think that's the power behind Randa Hoy.
I just love it. And then we had Eli Cohen. You said something really smart as well and really great. You said that speed, the speed in which you can actually introduce a new product on the market is usually correlated with the depth of the organization charts. That is, the more layer, the more slower it will be. So Antonio, back to you again. Could you comment on this vertical way of the historical way of looking at an organization, which is super tall and very bureaucratic and yeah, very formal and strict. How have you dealt with that?
Well, that's an interesting question, and thank you for it. And as an anecdote, last week Annika was asking me for the company's org chart, and I couldn't find it. It's not laziness; it's just we don't have it anymore. We used to have a big one that didn't fit in one page. Nowadays, it's pretty hard for us to really describe how we are structured, because it evolves every single day. The agility and reducing the distance between ideas, innovation, and execution is always a challenge. The good thing is that right now we all are in this journey of just like a continuous dialogue and just being nimble and trying to find solutions, because we serve only one person, which is the owner. In the past, we needed to produce PowerPoints before we produce the product and go to management instead of going to the consumer to ask them if the product work or not. We have, and I won't go long with this answer, but there is a very interesting experiment we have in the company, which is called First Built, which is a maker space. And this is an innovation center we have created here in Louisville, Kentucky, which is totally open to the community. So we co-design the products with the community, with the owners, and they help us on designing it, and we test it with them. And we can go from ideas to execution in a matter of weeks. And we have an example right now, which is a mushroom grower. It's a new machine that was an idea that came up 3 weeks ago. Right now, we're about to sell the first prototype or the first thing. So it's just like we're shrinking the time because we are reducing the distance between owners and our innovation.
Thank you. We just keep getting great questions. Thank you for being so active. So we have a question from Mark Meany, which is super relevant. It's about the performance evaluation. And I want to engage both Bill and Antonio, because GEA, you are not listed. So I know you don't use equity as part of the performance compensation and performance evaluation. Bill Fisher, you know that in China they do that. Maybe can we start with Antonio? How do you evaluate? How has the whole performance evaluation changed since you transformed according to this new philosophy?
Yeah, the market is the one who evaluates us, and the consumer is the one who's saying yay or nay with their behaviors. If they buy our products, it's a yay. If they don't buy it, it's a nay. So it's just pretty straightforward. And when you aggregate consumer behaviors and reactions and to our products and our services, then we'll have sales, we'll have EBIT, we'll have margins. So we have all the key metrics, and these are the metrics we use to calculate the bonuses, the annual bonuses. So what we have is a new compensation system in which, yes, we'll have our base salary, But on top of that, 100% of the salary organization will get a bonus. And that bonus is based on the performance of their specific business unit. That's it. So it's just like the numbers wise, this is how it works. We still have the traditional performance appraisals that is probably something that we took from our old structure, and we continue having this internal conversation with management, and then just defining how was your year, etc. We love to take this to a new level, in which is more a coaching exercise rather than an evaluation exercise. But the core of the compensation and the core of the evaluation goes back to the bonus, which is everybody will get one. Is based on performance, not individual performance, is group performance, and the results that are coming from the marketplace.
Bill, do you want to say anything about the difference between how Qingdao is doing it compared to GEA?
So I do. I think that, you know, in one way they're very different. In another way, they're very much the same. I think that there's a different context. The higher story is 40 years old. GEA is 5 years old. There's a big difference in that. Higher has been consistent in the way in which it measures performance for a long time in Qingdao, in China. And I think that it's always been about forward goals, not historical goals. They make the point there are no KPIs because most of those are inside out measures that are based on historical types of experiences. And we're going into a future where outside in is more important, and where history may not be as good a predictor of the future as it once was, not at all. I think that what we see, however, is that both organizations are increasing the amount of variable pay that's dependent on market-based activities. And I think that's really the big message. They're both in parallel. They're expressing that philosophy different, but it's the same general theme.
Great, thank you. And we got a question here from Sven Erik Eng. It's about storytelling, which is definitely a very, it's a great way to start transforming your own business. And he asked, are you also touching on storytelling from a customer perspective, that is listening well to the customer and sort of telling the customer story in the course? Now you're muted, Stephen. Sorry, you're muted.
Thanks, Sven Erik. I mean, I learned so much with you about listening to stories and telling stories, and it was an interesting facet of the pilot that of the training course that we did 2 weeks ago, that the participants were really interested in hearing the stories of the other participants, and were equally interested in how do you use story to communicate. And the course itself, it will be, in fact, oriented to trying to understand the customer story, as the customer focus is kind of like the obsession of all of these firms that have been successful in this field, because they recognize that the customer is the in charge of the marketplace. Power is shifted in the marketplace to the customer. And so obsession with the customer is key. And so listening to the customer is key. As you saw in those charts that I showed about in industrial management, the focus is internal. The focus is on the efficiency of the organization and producing outputs. The customer hardly figures in the picture. And that is one of the things that sparked the change at Microsoft, that somebody way down in the organization suddenly realized that the product that he had proudly developed and put on the market didn't meet the customer's need. And so he said, Microsoft will go bankrupt if we carry on like this, because the process that we have will take 3 years for me to change this product to make it meet the customer's needs. So we have to do something different. And so he started leading the charge. And so the workshop will actually follow that journey and see, well, how did that happen? What needed to happen to make it occur in that setting, and how you can use those kind of learnings in your own setting.
And you touched on something that is very important, Steve, and that is sort of those main principles I mean, most of the companies that are very, very innovative today have adopted those principles of speed and to be adaptable. And it's like leading, guiding star, and then they try to figure out how to make it happen by changing and transforming them. But can you tell me, Steve, why do you think so many organizations still live according to this 20th century management model? I mean, I'm so personally frustrated weekly.
Yes, I share your frustration, and but it's completely understandable that firms which have been successful doing one thing are going to hesitate before they start doing things in a radically different way. Executives who've based a career on doing things in a certain way, they are going to think twice before they start doing things in a radically different way. And so it's quite understandable that so long as the firm is being successful by what it's doing, there's going to be a tendency to stay with what you know. And the trigger for the change typically comes when somebody realizes things are not going well, that we will not be able to thrive if we continue to do this, to operate this way. And so you start to investigate, well, how could we do things differently? And lo and behold, today you find a whole lot of organizations are operating in this new way. 20 years ago, it was kind of hard to find organizations. And so it was the pioneers like Hire and Amazon and eventually Microsoft, although they weren't the first, who discovered that there was another way, and they made it work, and they are now trillion-dollar companies. So it's been a hugely successful thing for them. Whereas companies that stuck with what they were doing, I mean, firms like IBM and GE come to mind. They've really had a very hard time over the last 10 years because they kept on doing the thing that had worked for them before. And I think it was Kenneth who put in the chat that it's very hard to stop doing something when you've been successful doing it in the past. And
it's interesting because I mean, when I work with big corporations, I usually hear that but that is Amazon, that is, Google, that, that wouldn't work with us. But now with Hire, there's no excuse anymore, right? Because Hire was like a very traditional company and for a decade ago and actually managed to change. So my question to you, Antonio, and also to Bill, what would be your advice to leaders who are, that are considering adopting a philosophy like the Renan Hui that apparently have been helping a very traditional company to become one of the maybe most interesting transformation cases in the world today, coming from a hardware sector as well, right? So what kind of advice to leaders would you to give if they would like to adopt this kind of philosophy?
Bill, you go first. You're mute.
Oh, you're muted, Bill. Sorry.
You're muted, Bill.
Yeah, it's very good advice.
You can take somebody out of the analog age, but you can't take the analog out of them. I would say I'm really struck by what Antonio said about principles and philosophy and mindset. And it seems to me that you've got to truly believe deep down that your workers know things, that they're good people, that they come to work with good intentions, and that if you leave them alone or provide support or enable them, they'll be able to do more than you've ever thought about. So my sense is that it goes back to an reaffirmation of the belief that the people that we work with are capable of doing much better things than the organization has allowed them to do. And then, as you say, Antonio, it's giving up control. It's not abdicating responsibility, but it's stepping out of the way, right? It's setting a direction and stepping out of the way. And I think that would be the first thing I would start with. Antonio.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. I think is also a way. It is important to demystify Randanhui as a Chinese philosophy or managerial philosophy. Some people might not even listen to it because it comes from a part of the world where this is not expected to come from. And we haven't heard much about it, and we don't know how to pronounce it, and we don't know what it means. Honestly, this is a global philosophy, something that based on humanity applies everywhere. So just like dealing with the stigma that this comes from China is an important first step. And that's why this might be one of the barriers for this Randanhui for becoming a truly global model, is because we might label it first, like, oh, this is something that works in China, I don't think it works here. Or I don't get it because it hasn't been vetted in the West. Honestly, it came from whatever it came, but it's based on something that is fairly universal, which is human potential, human desire, and our entrepreneurship mentality and spirit that we'll have.
Annika, we might also note that there's a big difference between companies which have made the transformation top down and those where it's kind of bubbled up from the middle and then endorsed by the management. And the higher case, you had a chairman whose vision and decision making was very much driving the change, and some of the other, obviously in Amazon, the change is led initially from the top. But there are other cases which I think are the more interesting ones for the kind of participants we have who are not CEOs of companies, who are not able to fire whole slabs of managers and tell them now you have a different job. How do you make change when you're in the middle of the organization? And sometimes you have a boss who isn't supportive or a CEO who isn't supportive. How do you make change in that setting? And that's what we'll be talking about in the workshop. How do you get change even when you don't have power and authority to force the change across the organization?
And I also want to remind that, and this is something we will talk about in the course as well, that the Randanhui, even if it is from China, it might, scare some of you, but we see it as a meta model. In fact, it's the component of this philosophy is very similar to other top innovating companies in the world. So the philosophy is the same. So we can start talking about a meta model. I usually say that it's a new generation of a management model that we believe is absolutely a necessity for this digital connected world. But we got a great question from Jose Luis Lopez, asking what are some of the biggest challenges that GEA managers had in embracing this new philosophy? Maybe that is a good end question, and then we will wrap it up.
I think that the challenge we have every single day comes from what we call the best practices, which is the past. Breaking away from our heritage, from where we're coming from what we have learned over the years is one of the key challenges. So this journey is not easy. It is not true that we go and we fell in love and now everything is fine and fantastic and we hug each other and we love each other. So it is tough because we're fighting with the past. We're fighting with those practices which work very well and they serve their purpose 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but they might be incomplete for what we're trying to accomplish now. So this is what we call the phenomenon of the antibodies now in the COVID world. So we're all familiar with that. So the issue is that the organization will try to protect itself from this new thing. And there will be rejections, which are coming from processes and systems, from all policies, and from certain functions and organizations, because they are about predictability, they're about long-term, they're about just making sure that the numbers and that the figures are right and we can project them in the long term. When you have like such a nimble organization, when decisions are being made by the minute, and that you might have a new micro enterprise tomorrow that you haven't even thought about because a group of people were organizing themselves around that is scary for many people. So, and it just, is that wrong? No, it's okay. We just need to get used to it and just like, let it go. I think that's, to me, that is, and there is a song like let it go. It's just like, let it go. I just make peace with that.
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting. This I find personally very interesting. It's from Mark Mini. He's saying that Antonio is exactly right. It's based on Taoism, which is virtue-based ethics. Virtue ethics is reflected in all cultures. We might also characterize the philosophy as an ethics of care or a feminist-based ethics. And this is resonating with me and interesting because we know that Hofstede, for example, is a researcher doing a lot of research on national cultures. So we know that we have national cultures that are more masculine and more feminist. And I'm from a feminist culture, Sweden. And then we have countries with very masculine culture. And for me, this vertical model with a lot of, you know, top-down command control, for me, is a more masculine model.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but you are talking about a more people-centric model where people seem to be more happy and able to actually have their own passion, you know, mirrored with the company's passion, which is for me a more feministic sort of style, which is really resonating with me as a woman. Yeah. I mean, I would love to have that environment myself. One last question to you, Antonio. What would it take for Ren and Hui to become a widely adopted global managerial practice? I mean, we have had Lean, right? We have had Six Sigma. We even have TQM. Why not Ren and Hui?
I think it's a matter of time. I think these conversations are extremely helpful, and we need to continue having this open dialogue. We need to continue working on framing and sharing those principles, because I think the driver will be understanding and connecting on the principle base, like what you said. So this is more a feminine philosophy. It resonates with you. So why does it resonate with you? Because it's about caring. It's about your personal values. So just like reframing it and finding new angles that will connect with different people and different organizations. I think that is one of the key elements. The second one is, Steve was saying, was talking about it, is that resistance of change. It's like, that might not work here because we are such a small company or mid-sized company or whatever company we are. I think time will tell us that people will start looking for new ways, new models to transform, because the disruption is real. And the key concept for me is just like, if you don't want to get disrupted, please disrupt yourself. Right. Because it's going to happen. So how can you really disrupt yourself? Just with a control explosion, which is adopting a new model. And this is a fantastic way to do it, because it's just like it will help you to discover your real potential.
Right. And with that, I would like to actually stop and wrap it up by saying that if you want to continue this dialogue, and this is what we will do, we will discuss the 21st century. We will cross-learn between different companies that is participating in the course. This course will be on April 14th, 21st, and 28th. It's only 4 hours each of those days, in the very morning or in the afternoon in Europe, if you are calling in from there. It will be over Zoom. And it's a state-of-the-art course for senior leaders, startup founders, but also for educators and consultants. So, and why you should do it: become an evangelist, become one, you already is one, I can say, and I can tell on the questions. You can also meet with a network of like-minded and share your knowledge and challenges and learn from all of you. You can be inspired and get framework and tools to be used for your transformation. So if you're interested, you go to menlo.edu and then to executive ed, or you just contact me or the Ren Dan Hui Center at menlo.edu, and we will get you into the course. It's almost free. No, it's not totally free, but it's not a high cost. So with that, we believe that we want to disseminate this knowledge. So we decided not to do a very, very costly course. We want to disseminate this. We think this is very important for many nations now to have a survival of their companies and ecosystem, and keep the economy growing. And by that, I would like to say thank you to all panelists fantastic. Thank you, Antonio. Great. Steve, of course, fantastic. Bill Fisher, super. It's an honor to be part of your network, to work with you. And thank you, all of you participating in this course. We are coming up with new webinars, so keep looking and sign up, and we will continue this discussion, okay? And if you're interested in the course, you sign up now. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Peace.
Thanks, Annika.
Thank you.
Thank you.